From the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., this is Update One, the club's official podcast. It features newsworthy stories originating from the NPC facilities, as well as broader topics related to journalism, communications, press freedom, and transparency.
I'm Adam Konowe, co-chair of the National Press Club's broadcast podcast team. October 14th marked a deadline set by the Pentagon for accredited members of the media to sign a controversial pledge in order to retain rights to access the building. Dozens of outlets, including right-leaning Fox News and the Washington Times, refused, with only a couple agreeing to unprecedented and arguably unconstitutional restrictions. Joining me to discuss this is Aaron Mehta, editor-in-chief of Breaking Defense and a Pentagon Press Association board member. Aaron, welcome to Update One.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with what was the status quo across administrations of both parties up until this month. How did Pentagon accreditation work, and what did day-to-day reporting look like there?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward in the past and has been for many years. Effectively, you applied. There was a background check that was run on you by the security team at the Pentagon. And then they'd say, okay, you've got a 3-month pass. You'd go and you go enough 3 months, and they say, okay, you can apply for a 6-month pass and then eventually get a year pass. And after that, it was just kind of an annual renewal. You said, okay, I want to keep my pass. You put it in, they do the process, you come in, you sign a simple one-page document effectively saying, I agree not to do crimes, and that was it. Otherwise, we were in the building. Pentagon reporters have had a corridor since 2006, right next to the public affairs team of OSD, the Secretary of Defense. This included originally one bullpen, and then that was extended in 2017 to a second bullpen, as well as a number of booths for video for the network so that they could report directly and record directly from the building. What these badges did, and this is an important point that we can get into, this was not a situation where these badges let us beep into the Secretary of Defense's personal office and go through his stuff. What it gave us was access to the unclassified portions of the building, which, and this is an important point, is the exact same access that a janitor has, actually less access than a janitor has, or the workers at the Starbucks, or the workers at the Lebanese Taverna in the cafeteria. We had effectively the same access as those folks do, not access to any classified spaces, despite what some officials have said.
Yeah, no, I want to touch on that because Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has alleged that reporters were gaining access to classified areas of the Pentagon. They were soliciting top secret material. So I take it from your previous statement that that is not an accurate representation of press activity in the building.
That's correct. It's not accurate. What reporters had access to, and again, just to clarify this, there's about 17 miles of Pentagon corridors, right? This is a giant building that was built in a way that I think the line is you can get anywhere from point A to point B in 8 minutes or less the way it's designed. Depends how fast you're walking in my experience. But there's a lot of spaces. These include things like multiple food courts, like multiple Starbucks, just a lot of hallways to get from point A to point B. This also includes the hallways that take us to the public affairs offices of the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, and the Army, which were designed specifically to be accessible to reporters in the building. Throughout, again, going back to the Eisenhower administration, reporters have been able to walk through here and have that access. That changed in May when this administration, this Pentagon leadership, decided to start putting geographic restrictions in, which made it so that we could no longer go to most of the Pentagon, and that included, again, the public affairs spaces of the services without an escort. It's a big change that started in May, and then as part of the document that they want us to sign this month would have been codified.
Yeah, so what were the terms of the new policy, and what was the Pentagon's stated rationale?
Yeah, so the stated rationale, let's start with that. What officials have said, including Hegseth himself around this, is to try to cast it as if we somehow were running around the building without badges, trying to dive into documents and find secret documents. Again, that's simply untrue. The secretary and others from his team have said that we're objecting to requiring badges. There's no objection. The Pentagon Press Corps has always worn a badge inside the building the same way other people have. As part of the new document, they want us to wear a press-specific badge, and while we disagree with that as a thing that is needed, we see no reason for that. The members of the Pentagon Press Association, largely just from talking with them, were willing to go along with that if that was the only big change that was going to happen. The issue was much broader than that. So remember that I said the way that we've gotten badges in the past, we have to sign a simple one-page document. I will do no crimes. I will do no murder. I will do no prostitution. If I am arrested and charged with those things, I might lose my badge. Fair enough. What they presented to us now, first in September, was an over 20-page long document. As you'd expect, there were a lot of new things in there. As mentioned, it included codifying the geographic restrictions, included creating a new press pass that we would have to wear. But those are issues that we've been dealing with, frankly, for a couple of months because they started putting that policy in back in May, as I mentioned. The biggest issue is that there was language in there that, frankly, is just incompatible to our members' views with the First Amendment and, frankly, with us doing our job. The initial version of the document, which, to the Pentagon's credit, they did hear some of our concerns and pull back and rewrite, was so restrictive that it would effectively give the Pentagon, if we signed it, would say the Pentagon could effectively review any of our stories before publication. Clearly, that was going to be a no-go. So we worked with the Pentagon to get some of that language changed. Unfortunately, what we got back from them included a document that effectively said anyone in the Department of Defense needs to have formal permission to talk to a reporter. And that's from up top down to the lowest, E2 working at a base. They said, effectively, it says if they don't have permission, that is a violation of their pledge to the country, effectively a criminal act. And in turn, any reporter who is attempting to solicit such information, and by solicit information, they define that as broadly as putting a tweet out saying, if you have more information, please let us know, was effectively reporters trying to coerce members of the military into a criminal act. And hence, they would take away our badge. Obviously, that covers the basic fundamental how a reporter does their job, because our fundamental core thing is you ask questions and you talk to people. The Pentagon was saying that is no longer acceptable. Obviously, that is the argument that any member of the military talking to a reporter is against the rules is simply untrue and goes against the precedent of the entire 250-year history of the military. The concern was there was language in there, and this is going to get legal for a second, and I apologize to everyone, but I've had to have a crash course, so you guys all get to suffer with me. The document effectively said, these are our rules. Reporters are signing saying they understand the rules. There was serious concern among lawyers, and to be very clear, none of the decisions by the Pentagon Press Association's members to not sign this document came without extensive legal review from internal teams, right? Everyone talked to their lawyer. Everyone had people weighing in. Everyone had their bureau chiefs weighing in, the presidents of the networks in some cases weighing in. There was serious concern that by saying we understand this to be true, we opening up reporters on an individual basis to potential criminal charges. Obviously, that's a legal interpretation. Who knows if that's exactly what the Pentagon would actually seek to pursue, but it was a risk that enough lawyers said, we don't think this is safe, that ultimately, both on legal and moral grounds, the vast majority of our members decided they could not sign it. The PPA has about 110 members. Of those members, only 2 signed on to the document. The rest, as mentioned, October 14th, went into the Pentagon, handed in their badges, and walked out. And it's unclear when any of us will be back.
Secretary Hegseth has given only 2 on-the-record briefings since assuming his role 10 months ago, and there have been virtually no background briefings once commonplace, especially during military actions. How does that compare with recent administrations? And might that have the opposite effect from what was intended, right? Driving reporters to dig deeper through other channels.
Yeah, it's less than previous secretaries. Look, Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense for the entirety of the Biden administration, was kind of famous for not really liking the media when he was the CENTCOM chief, and that did not change once he was Secretary of Defense. You remember there's the whole issue where he went under medical procedure and nobody, alerted Congress or seems like even the White House, based on reporting, this was happening. But he's done more than Hegseth kind of on a pro-rote basis. But the bigger issue to me is less about Hegseth himself showing up in the briefing room, which, by the way, back in, I believe it was March, they locked the briefing room where reporters used to be able to go. We can no longer go in there kind of on our own without escort. The issue is that the rest of the team's also not really talking. Sean Parnell, who's the head of public affairs, has gone to the podium twice, once in March, once in July. Kingsley Wilson, who's the department's official spokesperson, has done 2 off-camera briefings, both in August. That's it. I've covered the building. I started in the second Obama term, went through all of Trump 1. I was there as a Pentagon correspondent in the building every day. And of course, with Biden, of course, there are stretches where some people aren't talking, where it's quieter. You don't have necessarily briefing every week, but it was pretty normal to have something on a weekly basis. And sometimes, an on-camera briefing once a week, plus multiple gaggles off camera throughout the week. This was true even during COVID. The Trump team that was there during COVID made a point of having digital briefings at least once a week to alert everyone what was going on. So it's not just Hegseth himself not appearing in the briefing room. It's a lack of overall public-facing access. Now, the Hegseth team says, well, actually, we're the most transparent because Hegseth records these videos and puts them out, and his team will tweet quite a bit about what's going on. But of course, that's a one-way thing. That's not a discussion. That's not giving the American people an unbiased view of what's going on. It's great that they do that. I understand why they think that's, a useful tool for getting their messaging out. But past administrations have also done that and paired it with being willing to take questions from the media.
Breaking Defense was one of 9 industry media outlets to sign a joint statement. That statement begins, "For decades, the defense trade media has been a trusted source of news and insight about Defense Department programs, budgets, and strategy. Ethical, accurate, and timely reporting makes that possible. The public, industry, and indeed the department itself benefit from granting credentialed defense reporters access to unclassified areas in the Pentagon and from the trust engendered by that access." So why was it important for these outlets to coalesce around a single statement?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought this up. I'm really proud of the fact that we did this. Obviously, my publication, Breaking Defense, as well as a number of my colleagues. And actually, Adam, you get to take a little bit of credit for this because the idea started at the Defense Media Awards, which, of course, you're involved with, the Sunday, I guess it was October 12th or so. So, look, defense media is kind of unique. As far as I can tell, it's the biggest kind of trade media out there in the US, at least on the government-facing side. Our audience isn't just the public, it's key lawmakers and staff, it's members of industry, and it's people in the building. And, to my mind, that's an audience that needed to be made aware of what was going on and, frankly, to get the truth about what is happening here. Again, it's not us going into classified spaces. It's not us whining about having to wear badges. This is a fundamental thing that will, cause problems with news gathering for publications that only cover or mostly cover the Pentagon. This isn't a situation where some of my colleagues, at, say, ABC or the New York Times, they got plenty of other things they're covering. This is part of their coverage. It's important. But it's not the sole issue. For us, we cover the Defense Department, the defense industry, defense policy on the Hill, defense ministries abroad, but fundamentally the Washington defense sphere. So I felt it was really important to make it clear that the trades are also on board with this, that we stand strongly with our colleagues and that we agree, this is not acceptable, but that we're also not going to stop doing our jobs going forward.
Yeah, so to that end, I mean, you recently appointed at Breaking Defense a new reporter to the Pentagon beat. So how will that reporter's work be affected now that they lack access to the very building to which they're assigned?
Yeah, our timing on that probably could have been better. So about 2 weeks before the first memo came out from the Pentagon, Ashley Roki, who's been covering the Army for us for a few years, we announced she's taking on full-time Pentagon coverage. You know, look, her job doesn't change. She's still going to report high-level moves inside the department. She's still going to be covering National Security Council, covering policy, strategy, acquisition changes that come out of the department. It definitely gets more annoying for her, though. And this is where, look, there's a reason why the Defense Department had an area carved out inside of itself for media. It's because it was right next to the public affairs team. And when something was happening, we could just literally get up from our desks and go 20, 30 feet and walk into the public affairs team and find out what duty has to say about this. And when we say something's happening, that could be as dramatic as an attack on a military base elsewhere, a jet that crashes somewhere, with a pilot, and we're trying to understand the status, or there's a new memo that comes out about fitness standards, something that Secretary Hegseth is very focused on. The ability to just go next door and talk to these folks who understand us, who know who we are, and have that quick exchange of data, that's a huge help for the Pentagon when it wants to get its messaging out, especially during a crisis situation. That's why we were there. That is now not happening. We're now forced to just email kind of a general box. Frankly, responses have been slower to emails and calls in recent months under this communications team. So the Pentagon's going to get less of a chance to weigh in quickly when crises pop up. And so how does that react to our reporter, Ashley? Well, she's going to, keep reporting things out. We're going to keep breaking news and making news. But the Pentagon is just going to have to be quicker to respond because she can't just run over now and say, hey, what's going on, and get their viewpoint.
So I mentioned at the beginning that you're a board member of the Pentagon Press Association in addition to your role as editor-in-chief of Breaking Defense. So can the Pentagon Press Association continue to exist? And what do you think comes next?
Yeah, I keep joking we should just change our name to like the PPA in exile and get like a big stamp on our logo or something. So the first thing that we have to do is we actually need to update our charter because technically everyone in the PPA has to have a badge. So right now we're all in violation of our bylaws. So we got to work on fixing that before we kick ourselves out. Otherwise, look, we're going to continue to operate. We're very proud of the community that PPA has built over the years. I think it's very telling that we actually added about 15 new members over the course of this experience from people who felt they wanted to be part of the PPA. There's no obligation if you cover the Pentagon to be part of the PPA. Frankly, it's always been a little bit of a loose coalition until really the last year or two where it's become a little more formalized by necessity. The Pentagon reporters community is different than the State Department, the White House, elsewhere. It tends to be very stable. People come and they stay for a long, long time. Bob Burns, who was the AP's reporter for a long time, if you go back and you look at the video from 9/11, when the Pentagon press were briefed by the Secretary of Defense in the building, again, because they were in the building, they all left when the planes hit and they came back because the Secretary of Defense wanted to show, hey, we're here, we're on the job, we're going to keep going. Bob Burns is in the front row of that in 9/11. Bob retired last year. He'd been at the Pentagon the whole time. David Martin, CBS, been there for a long time. A number of my colleagues have been there for well over a decade. Like I say, I've been covering the building on and off in different roles for about a decade, and I still consider myself one of the younger members of the PPA, which I just turned 41, so I might be fooling myself. But, look, this is a real community, and our goal is to keep that community together. It's very different now that everyone's scattered. A lot of the folks who have been just stationed in the building, they're a lot closer with the people in the Pentagon than they are with their own newsrooms because they don't really go to their own newsrooms that much. Their job is to be in the Pentagon. So we're dispersed, but we're dedicated to keeping this community together. And at the end of the day, our job has not changed. Our job is to keep reporting on the Pentagon on behalf of the American public. that's not going to stop. We're going to keep doing it. Like I said, it might be a little more annoying, but let's be honest, reporters love to complain too, so we'll make do.
Any chance you think of a change of heart?
I'd like to say never. We'll just have to see.
Fair enough. Aaron, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Aaron Mehta is editor-in-chief of Breaking Defense and a Pentagon Press Association board member for Update One in Washington. I'm Adam Konowe.
You have been listening to Update One, the official podcast of the National Press Club, the world's leading professional organization for journalists and a vigorous advocate of press freedom worldwide. If you have any questions or comments about Update One, send an email to updateonepodcast@gmail.com.